The Toronto Raptors front office has been very patient this season, and the fans maybe even more so. After being frustrated with the on-court product, there still hasn't been any action. But now, after the conclusion of the West Coast road trip and with the trade deadline just a few days away, the day of reckoning is nearly upon us. So in today's video, we're going to be discussing what the Raptors' plans are going to be going into this trade deadline period and what the team might look like after its conclusion as we get into next week. Let's get into it. What's going on, NBA and Raptors fans? It's Jacob here, back with Amateur Hour Sports, your source for the greatest coverage and analysis on the latest Toronto Raptors news. We do videos like this and live stream watch parties for as many Raptors games as we can, so if you like what you see from today's video and you want more content just like it in your life, then please make sure you are subscribed to Amateur Hour Sports. Help us on a road to 14,000 subs, and if you find yourself enjoying this video along the way, trade deadline coming up, lots of great videos coming up. Make sure you drop a like, it does go a long way to supporting the channel, and if you're enjoying the content, please let us know that you're supporting Amateur Hour Sports. But the video in question today is all about the trade season that is finally going to be upon us for the Toronto Raptors. We've been very, very patient this season as fans, awaiting what the decision is going to be from the front office in terms of the direction for the team. Now, it seems like at this point, the direction has sort of picked itself based on the record, based on the on-court product so far, but there's always been that patience from the front office. Even a month ago, teams were asking around, seeing what the Raptors wanted to do, and it's just been stamped that today is going to be the day for action, for where the front office decides what is going to happen with this team. They wanted to wait till the end of this 7-game daunting West Coast road trip to truly see what this Raptors team is going to be. Now, I don't think on the way to doing that, the front office thought we'd already be in such a hole that the West Coast road trip, wouldn't really change much of the outlook of the season, but they wanted to wait until this point right before the deadline where other teams around the league, they have a better idea of who they are. And more importantly, we have the right idea of who we are and who we are going to be this season. And like I said, we've been patient, they've been patient up until this point, and probably for very good reason. Yes, the Raptors, they have not been what they expected to be this season after winning 48 games last season, expecting to kick on this season, bringing back the same young core. It has been pretty much a disastrous situation for the Raptors based on the record. Right now, 5 games back of 500. Yeah, not far off the play-in positions, but Raptors fans and Masai Ujiri might agree that the argument for the play-in tournament has always been play in for what? You want to win a championship, maybe the best thing to do that would be going after a really good draft pick and not focusing on winning games, but focusing on development, focusing on going in the other direction to maximize your odds at getting that top overall pick and the coveted prize in this season of Victor Wembanyama. But the patience has been there, and it has been there for a lot of teams this season because the Raptors really don't have much room to go down, but there's a lot of room definitely to go up right now. And the reason I say there's not a lot of room to go down, yes, you want to, maybe some people want these competitive losses to maximize a draft pick, and sure, you can maximize it, but what does maximizing it really look like at this point in the season with less than 30 games to go? The reality is, like I said, you can't fall much further than you are. The bottom 4 in the NBA is really, really solidified here with the Detroit Pistons, the Charlotte Hornets, the Houston Rockets, and the San Antonio Spurs really locking into those bottom 4 positions. And unless you lose like 20 games in a row, you are not going to be in those areas challenging for those top 4 spots in terms of your odds in the lottery. So best case scenario right now, you move down to 5th, you go under the Orlando Magic, but the Raptors have been consistently hovering around 6th, 7th, 8th worth odds in the NBA, so maybe you could call that 6th, 7th, or 8th best odds at getting that pick, depending on your outlook for the season. So there's been a right at patience for this team because, it just can't really get much worse than this. Even if you sell everything, you probably still aren't going to catch those bottom 4 teams in the NBA. But there is all this room to go up. And if you go on a big run, you have a really good week, you have a really good month, and all of a sudden you could be looking at the playoff picture. But it really does seem like at this point, 5 games under 500, what is the sense of really going for it this season? And maybe the direction has picked itself. I think a lot of fans were looking for a much clearer picture from this West Coast road trip as to what this season was going to be. The Raptors were way behind the pack at that point going into this West Coast road trip. Raptors have been terrible on the road historically. They have not fared well in these West Coast road trips, but somehow amidst all the rumors that these players are going to leave. Like, you're looking at the guy beside you in the locker room, wondering if he's going to be on the team next week, wondering if you yourself are going to be on the team next week, knowing that this season has gone so much below expectations for what you thought this team was going to be. Amidst all of that, on the West Coast road trip, the Raptors come away with a winning record for the first time in franchise history, actually. They go positive on a road trip of 7 games. They go 4-3 on the West Coast road trip. It was the longest road trip they've had on the West Coast since 2007, but they have never gone 4-3. And amidst everything going on, I gotta say, that is pretty impressive for the Raptors. That's a pretty impressive feat from this Toronto Raptors team. We've said that, the last 2 games, maybe even in particular, the Memphis game yesterday, the Houston Rockets game from a few days ago, the performances were so lifeless, no energy. It's like the players didn't want to be there, yet still they come away with the wins in those games. And that's just a further testament that the talent has been there this season, the individual talent, especially at the top end of the roster, but the mesh hasn't quite been there and the consistency hasn't been there. And the Raptors very rarely win these close games like the one they did yesterday. And that's why we're in such a perilous situation. Myself, many fans, and maybe even the front office are ready to move on. And that's where the rumor mill starts to turn here for the Raptors. There was a little bit of suspicion and a little bit of worry from the fan base that maybe our leverage at the deadline wouldn't be as strong as it was like a week ago, because all of a sudden, maybe we didn't have the best player to offer up at the trade deadline, with Kyrie Irving all of a sudden being on the trade block. With that being finalized and traded to the Dallas Mavericks yesterday, it seems like the Raptors do hold the key to this trade deadline, with maybe 3 of the 5 best players available for trade being on our team. And you could question maybe even that being 4 of the best players being available for trade, with some rumors that have come out that we will talk about a little bit later on in this video. But teams have really been waiting to see the Raptors set the tone for the market. They've been queuing up to find out what our direction is going to be, what the front office wants to do. And they've always said, wait till we get home from this West Coast road trip. Well, today is the day the Raptors are home from the West Coast road trip, and it's time for action from the front office. I don't know if we're going to get a ton of moves or any sort of moves before the actual deadline day. Masai Ujiri has liked to hold as long as possible to see what is out there, but I am definitely not going to rule anything out from this team based on what we've seen this season and based on all the rumors going around and all the teams interested in the players that we have. The big one that we know many teams are asking about, and this is probably the best player available at the deadline, is OG Anunoby. And there's suspicion and there's a lot of reports saying there could be an absolute haul for the player, and it's kind of weird to see why he was out for so long of this West Coast road trip, and even Nick Nurse was surprised the length of this injury. Are the Raptors holding him out to make a trade? That's a distinct possibility. And further down, people are interested in Gary Trent. His contract is up at the end of the season. Fred VanVleet, people are interested in him. His contract is up at the end of the season. Fred VanVleet in particular, but both him and Gary Trent have taken a sharp turn for the better. I mean, Fred in this West Coast road trip has really turned his season around. And I mean, not just his 7-game stretch, but the last 5-6 weeks, Fred has been absolutely back to his best from an offensive standpoint. There are going to be teams interested in bringing these players in to really supplement their core at the deadline. I think what's so interesting about this season and about this trade deadline is that from my NBA watching experience, this is by far the most parity we have ever seen, which is great. It's great for a fan. It's great to watch all these games, but it's great for the Raptors in this scenario here because there's probably a lot more teams than usual that could feel like this is their year to contend. This is their year to go to the finals. I mean, there's no clear-cut best team in the Western Conference. The Golden State Warriors, even despite their problems this season, have long felt like the best candidate to come out of the Western Conference. But now with a significant injury to Steph Curry, it just opens it up even further. As open as it was, it's now even more open in the Western Conference. On the Eastern Conference side, it does seem like the Celtics are the best team, but Milwaukee not far behind, Brooklyn not far behind, Cleveland not far behind, and Philadelphia not far behind. Maybe even Miami all of a sudden creeping into that race. There's a lot of parity and a lot of teams who feel like they are missing that piece. Many could feel like it's OG Anunoby as the missing piece to that championship caliber team. Maybe other teams feel like it's Gary Trent. Maybe a team needs a point guard. Fred VanVleet could be that guy. But new reports are now emerging suggesting the Raptors are taking phone calls for Pascal Siakam. Now, you wouldn't be doing your job as a front office if you weren't entertaining the idea of a trade, in the sense that you're seeing the valuation from the player, what you're going to get. And it does really feel like at this point for the Raptors front office, everybody has their price except for Scottie Barnes. Scottie Barnes is the guy that they, at the worst in terms of whoever leaves, Scottie Barnes is going to be the player that they fall back on to build around. I think it's a very smart thing to do. I don't believe Pascal will get traded by Thursday deadline. However, they're taking phone calls, and if the right deal is in place, they are comfortable enough with what they have already here to build around that for the future in particular. So maybe this 4-3 West Coast road trip has kind of clouded the mind of the front office a little bit, but I really do feel like at this point, still 5 games back of 500, we have consistently shown we have not been able to use good wins as momentum to win more games in the future. The direction really has picked itself. Like, we are very few games above the Orlando Magic. The Orlando Magic. This team really is not going anywhere this season. I think the front office have recognized that. I think they've recognized their mishaps from the offseason where they have not given us enough depth. They've not provided us a rim protector. They've not provided us shooters. So what is it going to be that we're looking for at the trade deadline to get back? I still feel like there is going to be a lot of focus from the Raptors. It's obviously going to be very asset-based, getting assets back, getting picks back. But I think they are going to put a focus on getting things that are going to come back in our direction, not just for the sake of valuation. They want to start to plan for the offseason and for next season. I think they are going to be looking for a rim protector. I think there still is big interest in bringing Jakob Poeltl here and extending him beyond this season, so you have him for your retool phase in the offseason and for next season. I think that's a smart thing to do, and I think they will be looking at maybe bringing in shooters. But the one thing in particular, beyond just the assets they want, they are, I believe, going to be looking for the rim protector for the future, finally addressing that area, just to improve the on-court product for the rest of the season and at least put Scottie Barnes in the best situation for him to have success. Because if you're trading all these guys, you want to prioritize his development so he's ready to take the next steps, maybe even for the rest of this season, as well as going into next season. But as I mentioned earlier in the video, it seems like if you're not named Scottie Barnes, you have a price. And if a team is going to meet that by Thursday, then you could be on your way out of town. This Raptors team, as we know it, is about to change completely. We saw a complete overhaul from that championship team, that 2019-2020 team. This is a brand new team, and it seems like we really are going to start fresh, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to starting fresh. I'm really out in this core. It's time for Masai Ujiri to do, pretty much a complete overhaul of the roster, which he was able to really do in 2013 after trading away Rudy Gay, bringing in DeRozan, bringing in Kyle Lowry, starting a brand new era for this organization. This team, the way we've kind of built it, it got us a championship, and that is the ultimate achievement, especially for a market like Toronto, the Toronto Raptors, and especially as well in a basketball sense. But it's time to start fresh. I'm excited to see what this team can achieve, and I'm excited to see Masai Ujiri lead that. He has a lot of mistakes and a lot of questions to answer for. I believe he has the capabilities of doing that. Starting with this week, we'll see what happens. But like I said, the Toronto Raptors, as we know it, seem to be finished. That is all for today's video. If you guys did enjoy, please make sure you do smash that like button. It goes a long way to supporting the channel, and make sure you subscribe to Amateur Hour Sports. With trade deadline a few days away, there's tons of great content coming your way, so please make sure you're subscribed to keep up with all of that stuff. I'll keep you entertained. If you like the Raptors, you'll love Amateur Hour Sports. We'll see you again next time for another video.